Good afternoon. This is Danielle Conway. You're watching Life in the Law on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series. This week I'm here speaking with the William S. Richardson School of Law award-winning Intellectual Property Moot Court Team. But more than just talking about their experiences on a competitive team, I want to talk about being a law student generally and what the impressions of these important young minds are now and for our future. So with that, I want to introduce you to the team. We have Trisha Tamaru. Hello, Trisha.
Hi.
Sara, Tsukamoto. They are third-year law students. And our last guest is Michael Dunford. He is a second-year law student. Welcome to Life in the Law.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. So I want to ask you general questions about being a law student, but I want to find out who you are, where you came from before you showed up at Richardson. Where were you, and what were you doing, and what led you to the William S. Richardson School of Law? Trisha?
Okay, I can start. Before I came to law school, I was working in the hospitality industry, in the catering department, planning weddings and conferences, and I enjoyed that a lot. But I think what I was looking for was something that was a little more intellectually challenging, so something that would force me to constantly learn, to be a perpetual student, and also at the same time, something that would let me serve the community.
Fantastic. Sara?
I actually came straight through college. I was a business undergrad in college, and I was trying to decide what to do next, and at the time I just sort of gravitated towards law school. But I was able to, I'm doing a joint degree actually, so I was able to continue the business as well.
Fantastic. And Mike, why don't you round out our discussion?
I'm a little less traditional a student. I did the perpetual student thing for a while before I realized that law was definitely a field that would let you do that and not have to pay tuition every single time you went to do that. So I actually have a background in the sciences, tried to do a little bit in a PhD program, realized research wasn't for me, and gravitated a little bit more toward policy.
You know, as a law professor, I've seen two types of students. The type of student who says, oh, I think I'll just go to law school, without really knowing what law school is about. And then you see the other type of student who all they ever wanted to do was to become a lawyer. Where do you fall?
I'm definitely the first
The
one.
first.
Like I woke up one day and said, I think I'll go to law school.
So, admitting that, has the law school experience been everything you thought it would be, or has it been a drastically different experience?
It's actually been a little bit of both. I expected it to be challenging, and I expected it to be interesting, but I never expected that I would work harder than I ever have in my entire life and enjoy it more than I could have ever imagined.
I agree. I definitely knew it was going to be hard work, but I didn't realize what exactly that meant. So it's been good though. I think it's great to be just surrounded by people who are very smart and very dedicated, and that was a new experience for me, just to be around so many people who are passionate about what they're doing.
Definitely. I mean, I've been telling everybody who asked, especially during 1L year, I'm having at least twice as much fun as I possibly expected to have, and working at least 3 times as hard as I ever have in my life.
So the common thread is you're working very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience that you all share. I think many times people think they will go to law school as a placeholder for something else or to wait for something else to happen. And so would you say that's not the best way to look at the law school experience?
I think it's great if going into law school you know what you want to do and you know why you're getting the degree and what you want to do with it. But I think that part of the preparation that law school does is to help you figure out what you want to do and where you want to go, even if that means not going down the traditional route of being a practicing attorney in a large firm.
So you go to law school in Hawaii. A couple of you, I think, are from Hawaii, and there are others like you, Mike, and me who are transplants to Hawaii. For each of us, what does it mean to go to law school in a place where you were raised, born and raised? Is that a special feeling for you?
I think definitely. That was one of the reasons I came back. I went to school in California, and the college experience was great, but I realized after 4 years that I was really ready to start coming home. And I think the law school provides a really perfect balance for me because I have my family, I have my support system here. And I'm also able to just see how much the community really needs help and how much good we can do. So I would encourage people to come to at least consider coming back home, because I think it makes the experience a lot more important and a lot more meaningful.
Similar to Sara, I went to the mainland for my undergrad degree, and then I lived in Japan for a while. And I think that being able to go to law school in Hawaii in the community that I grew up in is a great opportunity to realize how lucky we were to have grown up in such a wonderful place, but also that we have a responsibility now to give back to the community and to ensure that others have the same wonderful experience that we have had.
Mike?
Well, I mean, it's definitely different coming from someplace other than Hawaii. But I don't think I would have done nearly as well as I'm doing so far in a larger school on the mainland. I love the community feel. I mean, it's law school, it's going to be competitive, everybody wants to excel, but there's a world of difference between someplace where everybody's trying to excel by climbing up on top of the backs of their classmates, and a place where everybody's trying to excel just by getting to the top, but being willing to help other people also try to get to their best potential.
We're going to talk about the Intellectual Property Moot Court Team in a few minutes, but I want to follow up on something Mike has said. So he comes to our law school as a person from another state, but he seems to incorporate this feeling of community, help, assistance, service, good spirit, competitive spirit, but good spirit. Is that something that makes this law school different than other law schools, in your opinion? You haven't been at other law schools, but you have friends at other law schools.
I think definitely it's something. Going into law school, I expected it to be very cutthroat. A lot of what you see on TV or in the movies, and it's been completely different. I don't ever feel like I need to succeed at the expense of my peers. We can all succeed together, and it works well in that you have a support there, so you don't feel like you're doing it on your own, but you're also pushing each other to do more than what you think you're capable of.
That's a really good experience, I think, not just for law school, but for life after law school, especially in a very tight-knit community as Hawaii. So good for you, Mike, for adopting that, and it's excellent that that's part of the community spirit of our law school. So now on to extracurricular activities in law school. If taking classes and doing well is not enough, the three of you have chosen to do additional work as moot court competitors. Can you tell me a little bit about what moot court is, and then specifically the intellectual property moot court team?
Well, this is actually, I'm a third-year student, but this is actually my first year on the team. I wasn't on the team in my second year. And for me, the reason I didn't try out the second year is I was really scared that it was way too much work and that I wouldn't be able to handle school and everything. But I think coming on the team was one of the best decisions I ever made. I really am so glad that I tried out. Moot court is just a competition basically where you practice your oral advocacy skills, and Richardson has several teams. And a lot of the teams are very competitive and very well known throughout the nation, which is great coming from a small school that a lot of people haven't even heard of before. But the IP moot court to me was the most interesting because I'm really interested in sort of business law, and IP was a very kind of far out left field sort of area of law that not a lot of people know a lot about, so I wanted to learn more about it, and I think it's been great to just delve into the issues, and I also think the teammates are great, so.
Well, they are great. You probably would not meet nicer people than Mike or Trisha. And who are the other team members while we're on the topic of the complement of the moot court team?
Nikki Yamauchi, Tim Partolo, and Antoinette Lilley are three other members of our team.
And not only are they doing the extracurricular IP moot court team, but Tim just got back from China. He was doing a study abroad there.
Yeah, Hong Kong.
Exactly. And he used his intellectual property experience there to do some work in a law firm there. So it actually has relevance, not just for Hawaii, but for abroad. So Trisha, getting back to the question, what is this intellectual property moot court team?
Well, intellectual property encompasses many areas, but the competition is sponsored by the International Trademark Association, sorry, INTA. And so every year our problem centers around a trademark issue. And they give you two issues. One is always the likelihood of confusion, which is a threshold issue for any trademark infringement case. And the second one changes every year. So this year we are addressing the issue of counterfeiting.
Interesting. And do you have any background reason why we're addressing counterfeiting issues presently in the INTA moot court competition? If you don't know, I can tell you. But do you have any ideas? I mean, this counterfeiting is the big issue of the day with the Anti-Counterfeiting Protection Act, and the idea is to use a criminalized form of enforcement to protect trademark holders. So the issues that you're actually briefing are the hot topics that are on lawyers' minds today. Speaking of the hot topics that are on lawyers' minds and that you're arguing them in a moot court competition, you won the competition last year, which means you have a very good handle on some of these issues that are present in modern day IP practice. What was the problem like last year?
Last year's problem centered between two parties. One who was a surf shop, a local surf shop that designed surfboards, and another was a famous snowboarding superstar who was designing her own line of snowboards. And the issue was whether the surfboard company was called Bluefin by Lulu, and the snowboard company was Skylarfin Blue, and there was the issue as to whether they were being confused with each other.
Now, it's interesting that counterfeiting issue is a complicated issue. We've talked a little bit about it, and it's a hard issue to get your hands around. But this issue with the surfboards, what kind of issue was that? Was it a trade dress issue, or was it a pure trademark issue?
It was a trademark issue, but what happened was the surf shop was originally called Bluefin Surf Shop, and that had been established many, many years ago. And the daughter of the two people that had established the surf shop is Lulu, who then wanted to branch off and start designing surfboards. So her mark, the Bluefin by Lulu mark, was much newer. And so the issue became whether the Bluefin by Lulu mark could also be afforded the same length of protection as the original Bluefin Surf Shop mark.
And the reason why I asked you the question is, for those who are listening to us, they may think intellectual property, that's a really tough subject. Is it really tough, or are there really fun aspects to it that we actually see every day?
Both. Absolutely both. There are all sorts of complexities and technicalities that are involved in the law. At the same time, I mean, if you're in law school, I don't know that there's really such a thing as an extracurricular activity. I mean, it all ties back to learning what the law is and how to learn what the law is. So there's a little bit of fun in being able to do that in a way where you're driving yourself to do it, or driving against other law schools instead of reading something for a specific class.
Excellent. So we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to find out from the Intellectual Property Moot Court Team why they actually do this kind of work, what compels them to do this kind of work, and then what challenges does doing this extra work present to them. You're listening to Life in the Law. I'm Danielle Conway, and this is the Think Tech Live Network streaming series.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome back. I'm Danielle Conway. This is Life in the Law on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series. I'm here with the William S. Richardson School of Law Intellectual Property Moot Court Team, and we're talking about the team's experience this year as they prepare for their competition. Where's the competition being held this year?
Our regional competition is being held in San Francisco at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Tell me about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Is that a harrowing experience?
It is, as if it wasn't enough that you're going to competition and you're nervous and you step into this gorgeous courthouse that is lined in marble with giant seats where the judges sit. It's very, very intimidating.
I bet. It must be an intense feeling to be thrust into a live competition doing what lawyers do day to day. How do you handle that?
Well, I've never been there, so I'm hoping I'll handle it all right. But I think what prepares us is the numerous practices we have. So right now we're practicing 3 times a week, and we have the fortune of having guest judges who are practicing attorneys or actual judges, and they grill us with questions and really get us to think about all the issues that could come up. So we hope we'll be prepared for the added stress of the location and the competition, but we'll see.
So Mike, who have some of these judges been who have helped you practice?
We've had a mix of people. We've had some practitioners from downtown who do intellectual property law for a living. And then we've also had, so far, Justice McKenna from the Hawaii State Supreme Court and Circuit Judge Clifton from the Ninth Circuit come in to help out.
That's fantastic, and that must be a harrowing experience as well.
I think you said grilling. I've walked out of some of those feelings somewhere between well done and very well done.
But you know that kind of questioning and the intensity of the questioning has a purpose. And what do you think that purpose is? It's not just to prepare you for a competition, is it?
It's not only to prepare us for competition, but as Judge Clifton was explaining to us last night, it's really about preparing us for the practice of law and for life. It's being able to articulate your argument and the reasons behind your argument, and being able to eventually defend or represent a client to the best of our ability.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think from that perspective, Judge Clifton actually said something to me before an argument in a class last year where he said that he really loves having that opportunity to let us do things without having a client's interests on the line. So hopefully those practices will be the worst oral argument experiences that we'll ever have.
Well, and that has its own gravitas, that one day, after just 3 years of education, you are going to represent someone else's interests. What do you think of that type of responsibility?
Sacred trust comes to mind. I mean, it's not the same kind of thing that a doctor does, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be people who have a lot riding on the case. We're fortunate that some of the faculty, particularly some of the faculty who teach the 1L curriculum, the first year classes, remind us all the time that we may get used to going to court, we may get used to the whole process of a lawsuit, but it's going to be a very traumatic experience for everybody involved, win or lose, because they don't want to be there, things aren't going well for them, and they have a lot that they need to get out of that.
So this law school experience and even the moot court experience is not just one of enhancing your knowledge, but it's also teaching you a level of compassion for those who you are going to have to represent.
Absolutely.
Well, it's an important thing that we do as lawyers, and sometimes even the best lawyers forget that the reason that they are doing what they are doing is for someone else who can't represent his or her own interests. And so I commend you for actually taking on this extra added responsibility to learn the craft even better. So, you know, last year's competition, I mentioned you were the winners of the entire regional and national competition. For the national competition, you got to go to an even more important court. And which court was that?
It was the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit.
That was a fabulous experience. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I actually was not one of the members that went. We had two intellectual property teams, and the other team went, but they did share with us their pictures and their stories, and it was an amazing experience for them.
It's a very impressive place, and even more to the point of representing interest, being at that level of practice demonstrates the importance of moot court in your lives and teaching you how to be in those places and actually perform in those places. So I really look forward to this team being successful and being able to share in some of that knowledge about what it means to compete on a national level. So we've talked about the good parts about being on a moot court team. What's challenging? What are some of the hard things you've had to deal with? Maybe the balancing of your coursework, maybe balancing a family.
I think time management is definitely one of the biggest challenges in taking on anything outside of just your regular classes, especially with the timing. We write a brief in the fall semester and it's due on January 3rd. So, you know, a lot of it is working over the holidays, and so that really requires finding time to spend with your families, but also time to devote to writing the brief.
And not only do you have responsibilities as moot court participants, but our law school also has a pro bono requirement that you must meet, as well as externship requirements. Have you started down that course to do that kind of work? And again, what's the time commitment?
So it varies. I'm working on the board with one of our student organizations, Students for Public Outreach and Civic Education, where we go into public schools in the state, Roosevelt and Farrington frequently, and a number of other ones, and basically offer classes for the high school students on topics like the First Amendment, and then what we call a street law program, where we introduce them to areas of the law that might be important to them in the long term, things like landlord-tenant, parental liability, that sort of thing. So that's a source of pro bono hours, but it's also a lot of fun, really. It's a good chance to get into some place that you really wouldn't get the chance to otherwise.
Sarah?
I think, in my opinion, the externships have been the most fun part of law school and the most useful. I actually had the fortune of doing 2 externships during the summers between my first and second years and the second and third years. And for me, that was just, it made it all real for me. It meant a lot more to be dealing with real issues and real people, real cases, and to also be under the mentorship of a real judge who has been active in the law for so long. So for me, the externships have been a huge part of my experience at Richardson.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because you've said something that always sparks a chord in me. And it's that word real that law students often use when they talk about their experiences outside of law school. So what I want you to talk about, or at least think about and respond to, is whether you're getting enough real experiences with law school. Are you supposed to? Or are you hungry for more real experiences in the law school environment?
Well, I think the law school provides all the tools that you need if you want to get that outside experience. And I think the administration and the faculty do a really good job of encouraging us to actually do something real. There are a lot of clinics that people take, and they are able to actually represent clients or represent clients under the supervision of real attorneys and deal with real issues, real problems, and real people with real emotion. So, and as I mentioned, the externship program allows students to essentially become judicial clerks for a summer or for a semester, and to do a lot of the things that clerks do in the real world, and to work under judges who deal with issues that are very, at least for the courts that I was at, very all over the place. You know, I was doing criminal law and immigration law and water law, and so the variety of issues that you learn about when you do work at a court are so much broader than what you actually learn in school, because you just don't have time to take every class, and so those outside activities really allow you to broaden your horizons.
And as you were broadening those horizons, did you come across any challenges or hurdles or obstacles?
I think just, especially the first year, I had just finished my first year of law school. I was sort of straight out of college into law school, so I was also very young and inexperienced, and I never really worked full-time before. And so just getting that confidence to actually make recommendations to a judge or to his clerks, and to feel confident in my opinions or in my feelings about which way a case should go, or how the court should analyze certain issues, that for me was the hardest part, was just getting over that hurdle. But the second summer, it was a lot easier for me, having that experience, to really understand that even though I was very fresh and very new in the law, I did have some experience, and I was able to at least make some just general judgments and general perceptions about cases. So, you know, you mentioned real, and that's about as real as it gets when a judge is asking you for your opinion, and you've only been in the law 1 or 2 years.
So at least being in the law school class allowed you the room and the space to formulate your opinion.
Yes.
Excellent. Mike, I want to ask you, because you are the father of 2 children.
Yes.
And you are a proud husband.
Yes.
What have the challenges of attending law school been for you, particularly on your family?
It's a lot of work. I'm away from my family more than I've been, certainly in the past, more than I've been for full-time jobs that I've had. At the same time, I sort of luck out. Both of my children are teenagers, so I'm back in school at the same time that they're in school. It does add a new element to the, so what can you do before your homework's done debates and that sort of thing. But mostly it's just about, like Sara was saying, it's time management, mostly. As long as you are very careful with your time and remember where the important things are, you can keep a good balance and still get done everything you need to do.
Well, I enjoyed meeting your daughter. She came to one of my classes, and since she wasn't a student, she didn't have to tell me the truth. But she did. And she said, oh, that was okay. So where did she get that little fire in her, that gumption?
According to her grandparents, she comes by it inevitably rather than honestly. I mean, both sides for sure.
Okay, well, I think I agree with them. So we talked a little bit about challenges in the law school experience, but how has being at Richardson helped you navigate those challenges? How has being at this particular law school helped you navigate?
Well, as I had mentioned before, there's really a strong sense of community at the school. And there are definitely times, usually around finals, where you start feeling really overwhelmed and that things are not going to get done that should get done. And it's nice to have your classmates that are going through the same experience, but also there to tell you, like, you'll get through it, you know, just one thing at a time, and we've gotten through it before, we'll get through it again. And so I think having a good support system of friends and colleagues is a great way to get through the challenges of law school. And
before our next break, Trisha, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your favorite course in law school?
Oh, anything that Professor Conway teaches.
Now, that's not really your favorite course. So why don't you share with us what your favorite courses have been in law school?
I did really enjoy intellectual property. It was when Professor Conway came to our real property class and taught one class about intellectual property, and that really got me interested in the subject matter. And then after taking the Introduction to Intellectual Property class is what really inspired me to go out for the intellectual property team, but also to take other classes like licensing intellectual property.
But just for our viewers' sake, you should know that Trisha's favorite course is Advanced Torts and Insurance, a course that I do not teach.
One of my favorite courses.
Sara, what's your favorite course in law school?
Oh, I would have to say Trust and Estates, and that was actually taught by a visiting professor, Fran Miller, who's at Boston University. And for me, that was just a really interesting sort of hybrid between the traditionally sort of cold and removed areas of law and the more emotional areas of law. And I would say the cold ones are more property, contracts, sort of the sort of very stoic and you know, those types of law, versus the more emotional side would be criminal and family law. So for me, it was a nice sort of combination of both the emotional and the practical side. So, and Professor Miller was great, so I really enjoyed that class.
And quickly before our break, what's your favorite
I honestly
course?
don't know.
Okay.
I haven't hit a course yet where I haven't had a lot of fun, so it's really hard to say. I mean, everything's a new learning experience. I've really been enjoying myself.
That's a perfect diplomatic answer to take us to the break. This is Danielle Conway. You're watching Life in the Law on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Welcome back. This is Danielle Conway, and you're watching Life in the Law on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series. I'm here with 3 William S. Richardson School of Law students who are also members of the award-winning Intellectual Property Moot Court Team. And so I want to talk with you in this segment about what is it you want to do after law school. What's on your horizon? What's on your career path? Where do you want to be?
Ultimately, I think I want to teach law school.
Fantastic. That was the right answer.
How I'm going to get there, it's still going to be an interesting road. My wife's in the military, so we have, I have limited choices in terms of where we're going to live and things like that. So I'm still figuring out.
Just ignore these
how
guys, okay?
to-
There may be a little noise.
Oh, there's a little noise, but we're still on the air.
Where was I? So,
Wife.
yes. So, not knowing where we're going to go to, or not having that much control over it, could make things a little interesting trying to chart a path.
Yeah, I understand. That's part of the challenges that we spoke about, right?
Yeah.
Trisha.
Well, I hope to go into litigation and practice in a large law firm here in Hawaii. I'd love to stay here and raise my family here.
Excellent, excellent. And Sara?
I would also love to stay. I have sort of a different goal. I'm not sure that I want to stay in the practice of law forever. I would like to start in litigation, but I think I see myself sort of transitioning more over to the business side later in my career.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because the William S. Richardson School of Law is very well known for 3 areas, and those 3 areas are Native Hawaiian rights, the Environmental Law Program, and the Pacific Asian Legal Studies Program. These are all very important programs, but we don't really identify ourselves as a business law focused school. Has that in any way stymied your interest or your career, or does it just make you even more invigorated about pursuing that area?
Well, I think that the joint degree between the Scheidler College of Business and the Richardson School is a really good sort of balance for those who are interested in going into business eventually. The program is growing, and I think in our year we have about 6 or 7, and in the year below there are a lot more. So people are really taking notice about that program as an option, and I think that program for me has provided sort of the perfect foundation on the business side, and it's also allowed me to branch out from what I knew from undergrad on the law side. And they are very different sort of learning environments. The business classes are very different, both in the way they're taught and they're graded, and just the students who are there. The business classes are with the evening part-time program, so all of the other students are generally full-time. They're working full-time. A lot of them have families, a lot of them are older, they're non-traditional students. So for me, that's just been a really interesting experience that I don't think I would have gotten if I had just been in the law program. But to answer your question, I think, I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything. My goal in business is really more focused on small businesses and local businesses. So I think that Scheidler does a great job of focusing on the local business community and what people's goals are within that community specifically.
Excellent. And so let me follow that up with a question to everyone. You mentioned about our part-time program, so I want to specifically mention that the William S. Richardson School of Law has an official and accredited part-time program for those students who otherwise would not be able to come to law school because they have full-time jobs. What has it meant to your learning environment to have access to these special kinds of students?
I think it, like Sara had said, you would meet people that you wouldn't normally meet in law school, people that have been working and continue to work, and so it gives you a different perspective to the things that you're learning, rather than people that maybe came straight out of undergrad or only worked a couple of years ago and are not working now. So it gives you a good perspective.
That's good. And Mike, you actually take a lot of the evening courses, even though you're not an evening law student. Why do you do that?
Mostly it was when things were offered by the semester, honestly. But it was very interesting to shift from being in the daytime class with just, you know, my colleagues in the 1L program to being in evening classes with people who were juggling the full-time job and the law school and everything else. And my hat's off to them. I don't think I could work that hard.
Well, I think all of you could, but you're fortunate you don't have to.
Sure.
Yeah, but they are a very special group of students at our law school, and they do deserve our kudos for taking on sometimes triple responsibilities, that being a law student, being a family member, and being an employee. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. So we talked about the part-time program, we've talked about the intellectual property moot court team, we've talked about law school in general and your career paths. So let's get off of those subjects and let's try to talk to people in the audience. What would you tell someone who might aspire to be a law student either at Richardson or somewhere else? Give them advice and a little bit of mentorship.
I would say to make sure that it's something that they really want to do. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and it's hard work. And if it's something that you don't feel you just kind of want to do, you're thinking, oh, maybe it'll be interesting, it's going to be difficult for you. But I think if it's something that you really want to do, then that's really what will help you succeed in law school.
That's good advice. Yeah. Sara?
I would say my biggest recommendation, and I think Mike can probably speak to this better than I can, but to make sure that your family is really supportive of your decision and to make sure you have that support system with either your friends or your family and your community, and to really know that they're also on board with your decision, because it is a family decision. I think whether it's your spouse or your children, I think you really have to consider the effect that it'll also have on them, because when you're a law student, your whole family the dynamic changes a bit, I think.
And aren't there things that the law school tries to do to incorporate family into the experience?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a very active Students with Keiki program, which is great. I haven't made that much use of it just because my children are older, but we have a number of students who have children in the toddler through grade school age range, and that program gives them the opportunity to bring their kids to the law school and engage in activities and get mutual support. So that's, very helpful, certainly.
So it's not the law school's new pipeline program to get your kids into the law school admission stream, but there's a thought, right?
Absolutely.
So could you answer that last question about mentorship and advice to someone who might be thinking about attending law school?
I don't know that I would say don't do law school if you're not sure that it's what you want to do, but if you're going to try to do law school, know why. Know not just what you want to get out of it, but what you want to give into it. Because, I mean, law's got that reputation for being one of those nice, high-paying areas and everything, but it's like a lot of those areas. You can make yourself very miserable while getting very rich in the process if you don't know why you're actually doing it, what you want to contribute to society as a whole. And I mean, there's ways to do that throughout the law, from big firm practice on down to the folks who work for the not-for-profit groups and everything else. But it's a matter of knowing, I think, really what you want out of, what you want to get, and what you want to give.
That's a fantastic answer. So why don't we take a break? This is Danielle Conway. You're watching Life in the Law. We're having water problems in the studio, but hopefully those will get fixed on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series.
We want to thank our
underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Aloha. I'm Nicole Horry with the Think Tech Commentary. The PUC has established an investigative docket to determine the advisability of an undersea cable connecting the Oahu and Maui electrical grids. It has scheduled public meetings on both Oahu and Maui to invite comments on the proposal. The PUC is investigating whether a transmission cable between the two islands is in the public interest and whether the benefits to ratepayers would exceed the costs of the cable, which DBET estimates would be $700 million. The PUC also wants to know about development risk.
Welcome back. This is Danielle Conway. You are watching Life in the Law on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series, and I am joined in the studio by three wonderful law students from the William S. Richardson School of Law. They are also members of the Intellectual Property Law Moot Court Team. So I want to put you on the spot yet again, because that's what moot court competitors are prepared for. What have you given back to the law school in exchange for what it seems that you've received from the experience? What have you given back?
Such a hard question. I think participating in the moot court competition, so I was fortunate enough to be on the team last year. And so this year, being able to share the experience with other people like Mike and Sara who weren't able to be on the team last year. But in addition to that, I also serve as the editor-in-chief for the University of Hawaii Law Review. So I spend a lot of time working with the journal to help publish articles that are pertinent to our local legal community.
Excellent. Sara?
I think for me, just sort of serving as a very close peer mentor to the people in the class below or the two classes below, and also to people who are thinking about law school and are sort of stuck about whether or not they actually want to take the plunge. So just for me, I found that those were the most important mentors to me, were the people in the classes above me. So I really tried to make friends and sort of give advice and console the people who are in the classes below me and tell them it does get better and you know, you get used to it and it's really rewarding in the end.
That's terrific.
Yeah, there's a lot of pay it forward in law school, especially our law school. You don't get through the first year without the second and third year classes, and you remember that when you hit second and third year. So, I mean, it's almost a continuous process of, and giving back almost feels like the wrong way to put it. It's just one big community that everybody's contributing to.
Excellent, and that contribution improves and enhances our knowledge base and makes us better lawyers, but also better people. Talk to me, Trisha, a little bit about being editor-in-chief of the Law Review, and then I'll also ask Mike, because he's giving in a way too that he's not mentioning, as he is a mentor as well as a tutor for the contracts class, but even above that, he's my research assistant. So why don't you talk a little bit about the Law Journal and what that does specifically?
The University of Hawaii Law Review is the only law review in the state, as we are the only law school in the state. And what the journal does is we publish 2 issues a year containing articles that we get from professors across the country, as well as professors at our own school. And the topics of the issues range from things that are more practical to concepts that are more philosophical. But this year, myself and my co-editor, Ewan Rayner, we tried to focus on articles that would be useful to local practitioners. As we are the only law review in the state, we feel a responsibility to publish on the issues that are pertinent to our local community.
Excellent. And Mike, tell us a little bit about the work that you do, not just for me, but also for the first year class and their contracts review.
So the school's got a very good academic support program that Professor Skilling runs that actually provides tutors for all of the key 1L classes. And it's a lot of fun. You get to get in the room with the 1Ls, look at the uncertainty, remember exactly how much you've learned in a single year, and then just do your best to help them over some of the rougher patches that are there.
Right. And there are some rough patches.
There's some very rough patches.
And the work you do for me, how rewarding is that?
Absolutely fantastically rewarding, and not just in the financial sense.
And what's your latest project that you're working on for me?
Trying to remember which of the three. Right now we're working on the updates to your casebook for licensing, I believe.
Exactly. And how do you think that's going to prepare you for life after law school?
Well, I do want to teach someday, so hopefully getting a feel for what the academic life can involve is going to help out in the long run.
So even law professor in training we provide at the William S. Richardson School of Law. So we only have a few minutes left, and I really want to address why we need lawyers and why we need Richardson lawyers. And so from your perspective, what's the importance of becoming a lawyer, and what's the importance of being a lawyer from this law school, the William S. Richardson School of Law?
Well, I think specifically this school, the reason I think it's important is that, you know, there's a brain drain that you hear about in Hawaii, and a lot of people out of high school or out of college feel that they need to move away to start their careers or to get, you know, higher education. And I think for me, what's really important about this specific law school is that it creates lawyers who know the community and who know the specific issues that are important here. So that was one of the reasons I came back, is I really wanted to move back and sort of help stop that brain drain. I think it's important that we sort of keep our brightest people here and keep the people who are really willing to help the community and who have passions in the community. So for me, that's most important.
Very laudatory. Fantastic. Well said, Sara. Trisha?
I agree with what Sara said, that we need lawyers in general to help people, to represent people that cannot best represent themselves. And I think especially a Richardson lawyer is someone who understands the local community, that understands the dynamic, but also understands the importance that we are in a profession to serve others.
And Mike?
Absolutely, that serve others is really what comes in. I mean, it's people, whenever you get groups of people together, you've got disputes and you've got conflict. The law is kind of lubricating those gears. I mean, without that, dispute resolution goes back to, you know, Middle Ages, trial by combat, who's bigger, who's stronger. So just getting the sense to really see how to kind of work into those gaps and smooth things over for people is very important.
So 2 of you are going to be graduating this year. Congratulations. You have to do something called pass the bar exam.
Yeah.
After you study for and take the bar exam, what do you intend to do before you start working?
Take a nice vacation. I'm actually planning to go to Europe for at least a couple of weeks.
That's fantastic. And you're going to visit which parts of Europe?
Right now, thinking about visiting Scandinavia, Iceland, Norway, Sweden.
Terrific. Sara?
I also will be traveling. My mom is an expert trip planner, so she's got us going to New Zealand and Australia to visit a cousin of mine.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah. And what's your cousin doing in Australia?
She just moved there. She and her husband are both attorneys. They lived previously in New York, but they moved back to Australia, where he's from.
Terrific. And that's another opportunity that you can take advantage of when you are a graduate of the William S. Richardson School of Law. It's not just local practice. We see how important local practice is, but you can be also an international lawyer. So Don't let them take you away from us when you visit. Thank you very much. You've been watching Life in the Law. I'm Danielle Conway on the Think Tech Live Network streaming series.